Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the BMB Bike's 90mm Rise Reverse Stem. So before I get into the full review, I kind of wanted to give you guys a rundown of what makes this stem differ from a more traditional stem, such as like a 40mm one. Well, this stem is a negative 15mm stem, which means it's 15mm behind the steerer tube. A traditional stem is typically around 40mm in front of the steerer tube, and this one is behind the steerer tube, so it gives some interesting handling characteristics. So basically what the stem is advertising is that it really helps the bike steer and really lean into those side knobs. It gives it like a kind of a bit of a gyroscopic effect. When you go to lean the bike, it naturally wants to turn, versus a traditional stem. When you lean the bike, it doesn't just naturally want to turn, you got to actually make it turn. Also is 90mm up. I'm sure most of you guys that have ever seen this stem, you've probably seen the 150mm version, as that was his first iteration, and then Bronson added the 90mm as a kind of a best between two worlds type of thing. So it's 90mm up, which gets your weight back off the rear, which then in turn lightens the feel of the front end. So basically you have a lot less weight on the grips, which also gives you a pretty light steering feel. Okay, so that's enough about talking about what the stem does. Let's get into the review. So I went out to Santa Cruz, which is the area I typically go to test out all my stuff, and I went and rode trails that I've ridden on this exact bike with a traditional setup, just for consistency's sake. So right off the bat, it felt quite weird, and that's to be expected because this thing is so drastically different from a traditional setup. I ended up getting 2 warm-up runs on it. Then I felt comfortable enough to start pushing it a little bit more and really get a feel for the stem. So right off the bat, I immediately noticed how intuitive it was to steer. So unlike a traditional setup, I felt that this setup really allowed you to lean into those side knobs, and it really naturally turned really well. I did ride pretty tight and flat corners, which is where this stem is going to excel the most. I found that this bike being a really good flat cornering bike, the stem really complemented it really well. And on the topic of talking about how it gets along with the bike, this is a size medium Dreadnought V2. This thing has a quite long chainstay, and Bronson was saying that this stem gets along with a long chainstay bikes really, really well. And another thing that also occurred to me is that this is a high pivot bike, and it tends to like to throw your weight forward, which is why a lot of people would recommend you run a high rise bar or a high stack on this bike. And so I figured it was going to complement it quite well, as it got the bars even higher than they were before. And I think that was probably true. Something I did notice pretty quickly on my first couple runs on this stem is how light and twitchy the steering is. So if any of you guys decide to try the stem or buy one for yourself, just be sure to take it easy on the first run. It's a very different feel, and I noticed it's very easy to rip on the steering a little too hard and end up jackknifing or oversteering with the stem, as since your weight is further back, you're really light on the hands, which actually complements the twitchy steering, but you can easily steer too much, and the bike can get caught off guard pretty quickly. So after my first couple runs, I was able to adapt to the steering being a little bit more twitchy. It's really light and easy to turn, which has its benefits. So regarding the cornering of the stem, I hit a lot of corners, really got a feel for the stem, and there was a couple of instances where this stem kind of blew me away with its capabilities. So there was one corner in particular where the stem did something that I would have never expected any stem to ever be able to do. So there's this one really long kind of flat corner, and I came through it I think my second run of the day, and I was able to like inside the corner like really ride low in the berm, and it somehow grabbed enough traction. Obviously this wasn't on purpose, but it really shows the capabilities of the stem. it really leaned super hard and was able to engage those side knobs so well to the point where I cut the turn in half and jumped on the side. So obviously that it's not ideal to do that because that line isn't like anything special or anything. In fact, it's probably slower. But I thought it was insane how I was able to gain enough traction to hop up on that side. It just seemed, I went back and looked at it and I was like, this thing looks impossible. How did I even be able, how was this thing even able to do that? And it was just kind of shocking to me, and I was just super impressed with, by how it handled that. And then there was another instance where I rode, there was this trail I've ridden probably 100, 200, like somewhere between like 100 and 200 times in my life. And I hit this set of 3 corners the best I probably, or the smoothest, I should say, the smoothest I've ever hit them in a long time. And I think I know exactly why. So since this stem is 15 millimeters back, it makes the steering, again, super light. And so I think with a traditional stem, it's too sluggish and not active enough when coming through those corners, because you're coming at a super high speed and they're super tight. They're built up big enough where you can ride them fast, but they're to the point where steering speed is too slow on most setups. Most people aren't going to adjust their setup for those turns specifically because there might be some downsides for other parts of the trail. But with this stem, I went through them and it was shocking. Like, this stem is so active and agile compared to a normal stem that sticks out forward. And so it was just kind of shocking to me how smooth. Like, I normally get a little bit nervous going through them because I've crashed in them, because you can end up going, you can't steer fast enough. You go up too high and then you tee up the next corner and you can kind of crash. This one, I was able to stay kind of low and inside. And again, it was just shocking. So super pumped how this thing was able to handle those corners. And you guys might also be thinking, you're like, okay, twitchy steering. One thought that might come to mind, and it did for me too, was, is it going to be stable? Because I felt like initially I was like, dude, if I sneeze, I'm going to jackknife it. And funny enough, I went on one of the chunkier trails, like it's like a downhill training track, and I did not feel like the bike was way less stable. Like maybe a little bit, but like really not much. And it was honestly kind of shocking. Like, the bike rode quite good. I would say the only thing that felt a little funny was maybe the shock was a little soft and the fork was a little stiff, and that's due to getting the weight back. The fork has less weight on it. In turn, the fork is going to be stiffer, and then the shock has more weight on it, so it's going to be a little softer. So maybe not quite as balanced, but I didn't really mess with the fork just for consistency's sake. But I think if you got the stem and messed around with some of the pressures, it could really, the bike could really rip with it. The increase in height and it also being further back, it shortens the reach, and it also gives you a really nice climbing position. I found that it's not quite as good for technical climbing, but those long fire road climbs, it was way more comfortable in this position as you're way less hunched over. If you ever have back pain while climbing, this thing definitely is going to solve that. Everything's more upright. It shortens the reach of the bike, obviously, with the 15 millimeters back. But I didn't find that it was that much of a downside shortening that reach. For me, shorter reach can make the bike more fun. Obviously, sometimes shortening the reach can make it less stable. But this bike is already a very long bike, and it's very, very stable. So it complemented that pretty well. And another thing I also wanted to mention was that it really does well with lifting the front end up. So obviously, since it's further up and further back, it's going to make lifting the front wheel off the ground a lot easier. So bunny hops, manuals, wheelies, you name it. All that stuff is so much easier to do on the stem. Obviously, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There was a couple of instances where I did find that the stem was a disadvantage. One of them being jumping. Jumping was fine, but I felt like it definitely hindered the way the bike jumped. You gotta be mindful of where the weight is on the bike, because if you traditionally, I would hang off the rear a little bit more to boost the jump, but you gotta stay a little bit more forward because the stem puts you way further back, which makes you want to land really rear heavy. So I was able to adapt to that really quickly, but I did find that jumping was a little bit funny on the stem, and I think it was definitely not as good as a traditional setup like I normally run. And then another instance I found is I felt like pumping corners felt harder. It might be because I don't have as much weight on the front wheel, but I found pumping to be a little bit more dead. I'm still learning this bike, and high pivots are, the timing's just different. But I felt like it made it worse in a sense. Those two weren't that much worse than a traditional setup. There was a lot of positives. The positive and the negative ratio, the positive is definitely on the upper hand. The amount of riding I got a really good feel, and everything, every run I would support my ideas more and more. So I think that the stem has a time and a place, and I think that some people out there would really benefit from this thing. So you guys might be asking, who is this stem for? I think this stem could work for a lot of people. So first of all, if you are a more novice rider, let's say, and you are a little bit nervous with the front wheel, you don't like being too close to the front wheel. I noticed a lot of newcomers either hang way off the back, they end up having some high-rise bars, or some setup to try to get their weight back to make them feel more confident. And in support that, Bronson, the owner, was telling me he said that some people would get on the stem and just start PRing like left and right. And I think a majority of those people are probably people that were a little nervous with the front end, because this stem definitely brings confidence. It definitely could bring confidence to somebody that is afraid of the front end, or is afraid to go, basically being afraid of the front end is just being afraid to go over the handlebars, essentially. So yeah, I think this stem is going to suit somebody that is a little nervous with the front end and would like to gain some easy confidence. This stem will definitely gain that type of person major confidence. And then in terms of the turning characteristics, this stem is definitely encourages you to corner more so like you should. So basically it encourages you to lean the bike more and really get into that turn. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody that is a little bit, not the greatest at turning, or somebody that's still working on it, could see some significant gains in their speed and confidence in corners. This thing just encourages you to ride how you should, and basically encouraging because it just does it. It just that's kind of where it wants to go. And so I think this could suit somebody that is also looking for something like that. And then in terms of a more advanced rider's perspective, I think that advanced riders, depending on who they are, would enjoy this stem. For me, I actually kind of enjoyed it. I thought it worked really well in certain scenarios, such as turning. But for some riders out there that have maybe a one bike and they want to just try something out, I encourage you to try this out. You might actually like it. And if you want to go extreme, get the 150 millimeter version. So yeah, that's about all I have to really say. You guys make the decision. It's up for you guys to decide if this stem is for you. I hope I was able to help you guys out in this review. And I wanted to thank Bronson for sending this stem out for me to test. I'm super stoked and feel privileged to be able to try this thing out. I've seen the 150 millimeter version all over online. Bronson's a super cool dude, and if you guys ever end up getting the stem and have any issues, he is super cool, and he would be totally down to help you get the bike to feel just as you want. If you guys would like to pick up a stem, I will leave a link down below to the 90 millimeter version along with the 150 millimeter version. And if you guys would like to support me further, hit me up on Patreon. I release all my videos early there, and I also have some Patreon exclusive stuff. So if for as little as $5 a month, you guys can help the channel out a ton and get some pretty sweet perks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.